Folks, we are here with part 2 of our starting pitcher ranking review. And what do we do with names like Aaron Nola, Hunter Brown, Michael King, and more? We got you covered on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, but most importantly to you guys and Matt and I this time of year, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experience where you're going to get text message alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute podcast. And this time of year, you're going to get our 2025 sleepers, breakouts, bust, rankings, and so much more. So if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, the link is in our bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, we're back with part 2, starting pitcher rankings. And I just want to clarify one thing. I said Hunter Brown at the top. He'll be featured probably in the next episode, but I did mean to say Hunter Greene, who will most likely be featured in this episode. But Matt, the pitcher whisperer himself, once again, Matt, I got to pass it off to you here because you're the man when it comes to starting pitching.
I mean, I'm never going to turn down a compliment such as that. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for being a peon. So let's get in this. So my 13 through 24 pretty much goes like this: Shota Imanaga, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Garrett Crochet, Dylan Cease, Hunter Greene, Shane McClanahan, Spencer Strider, Bryce Miller, Aaron Nola, Jacob deGrom, and Tanner Bybee.
And I got my 13 through 24 here. Once again, Matt and I's rankings are geared, towards head-to-head 5x5 category leagues. That's what Matt and I specialize in. We'll always throw a little bit of a point spin in as we talk about these guys, but that's what we specialize in. So that's where we do our rankings. So mine starting pitchers 13 through 24. I have Michael King at 13, Luis Castillo at 14, George Kirby at 15, Tyler Glasnow at 16, Aaron Nola at 17, Framber Valdez at 18, Zach Gallen at 19. Hunter Greene at 20, Pablo Lopez at 21, Freddie Peralta at 22, Tanner Bybee at 23, and Roki Sasaki at 24. And Matt, this is really, starting pitching is always fun. And this is the point where I think we kind of get into that range of pitchers where I've seen all these guys, getting ranked all over the place. So, it's just interesting to see how that fall off after 12 is, honestly, my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, like any of these guys can have the upside of being a 1. Some of these guys have already done it. There's names in here that, you have ranked as your 1, and on my side at least. And, it's interesting. It's very volatile, kind of thing. Like everybody in this group, except for maybe like 2 or 3, probably have like safe floors and then incredible ceilings. And some are just pretty much just an SP2. It's great. And the value on some of these guys is absolutely bananas too.
Yes.
Just like the SP1s we were talking about yesterday, that guys are falling, and then you're able to get these guys as, your 3s and 4s, which is kind of bonkers for me. It's just wonderful how this is all playing out. So.
Yeah, man, I fully agree with you there. But as we look at these lists here, I think there's one that stands out to me personally because I have him ranked so low, and this is a guy I'm probably one of the lowest people in the industry on. Shota Imanaga, Matt, you got him up there at 13, and I'm gonna say you're probably spot on with what ADP has him. Actually, he's fallen a little bit. SP19 for Shota Imanaga, quoting the Fantasy Pros, around pick 67. Well, you'll find out where I have him in the next episode because I got him a little bit lower. So, Matt, what's the hype on Shota Imanaga?
So when it comes to him, I'm impressed, right? Like I didn't expect this kind of season from him, and whenever you guys are able to surprise me, It makes me do a deeper dive, and it makes me, try to quantify why this happened and what really was behind it. And it's not like he's like this complete knock your socks off kind of guy that, you know, strikes out everybody and has a super incredible dominant high velocity fastball, right? Because that's not him. But you look at his track record in, overseas, you look at everything else, and then you see him come to the bigs, and it pretty much translates, gives you confidence in the skill and in the talent of what he's actually able to produce, even being 31 years old. Imanaga last year had a really great season, 173 innings pitched, 174 strikeouts, a 291 ERA with a 102 whip. Honestly, it's really, really nice to see something like that, quite honestly. You look at like his, years in Japan, and it's similar stat lines. Literally, you look at 23 the year before, 159 innings, 188 strikeouts, a 277 ERA with a 101 whip. The previous year, 158, 100 innings, 151 strikeouts, a 204 ERA with a .9 whip. Like the dude has just been very dominant in his, career in Japan. And now that he's in the bigs and it's translated, it gets me excited. It means that it's repeatable. It means that there's some consistency. The xERA, yes, is a little bit higher, about like, a 339 versus the 291. I don't expect him to be sub 3. That's kind of unsustainable. I mean, Japan League is one thing, but the MLB is a big difference. That part is not repeatable, but I will take a 339 ERA. I'll even, where I think he'll be is more of like a 315 ERA. A guy that, has great movement on his fastball and his off-speed pitches, a guy that gets guys to chase, a guy he creates whiffs, strikes out guys, creates the Ks, doesn't really walk guys. Things that are not so great that I would like to see some improvements is how often he lets guys barrel, the hard contact. He needs to produce a little bit more ground balls. But, it's not like he pitches in a horrendous park. And he has an arsenal and a half. He has a four-seam fastball, a split singer, a spinger, a sweeper, changeup, curveball, sinker, cutter, slow curve. It's interesting. There's a lot of things at play. He leans on his fastball the most, throws it 52% of the time, followed by that split finger at 30% of the time, but then mixes in that sweeper and changeup pretty dangerously, because especially the changeup and sweeper, they're throwing 7.7% of the time and the 3.9% of the time. Very high putaways, 21% with that sweeper, 17.8 with that changeup. That split finger really gets guys away at 26.3% of the time. He does a lot of things that are positive, and that I think with the pitch mix, with the arsenal, and with the track record at this point and the translation, there's no reason he should not be SP13. I think I have somewhat of a trust, but I also love the ceiling, because if the higher Ks kind of translate and he's able to crack the 170s, 180s in innings again, we're going to see a possibility of 200 strikeouts or getting near close. And I'm pretty excited to see what that could be this year.
I hear you, man. And I'll say this: I think I am a little too low on Imanaga, because I like him. The talent is there for sure. The one thing that honestly that just worries me is I think the ERA is going to get inflated a little bit. I know you're talking about the xERA, but even if you look at something like FIP, 3.72 FIP. That's the one thing that worries me. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that ERA down. I know you were talking about the ground ball situation. He's not great at that. With the not being great at getting ground balls and giving up a lot of hard hits and barrels, I think that ends up in a couple more home runs, which elevates that ERA a little bit. So if we're looking at a guy that's more like a 3.5 ERA, I know you talked about the K upside. I don't know if I'm there with that kind of K upside. We have the track record in, overseas, and he was never really like a major kind of strikeout guy, kind of more around that K per 9, some years he was over, some years he was under. So I'd say he kind of, what he did last year would be about spot on for him. So when you're talking about a K per 9 guy, good control, the whip is definitely going to be a plus. If you need whip by the time you're looking at SP2, ranges, which we have to draft them, you want to take a good whip pitcher, you could definitely look his way for sure. But I don't see the upside that most other people see, which is why I'm a bit lower on him than everybody else in the industry. But you know what, man? He's still a good starting pitcher. I'm not going to knock him for that. I just don't think the Ks are going to be as good as some people do. And I think the ERA gets elevated a little bit. That's why I have him pushed down a smidge for me.
Yeah. I mean, I can never blame you for that. And, I definitely said, he has his ERA will be higher this year. I mean, staying sub 3 in the MLB versus Japan is definitely, not something that's sustainable. But, mid threes, 3.3, 3.15. That is where I think the range is going to be. But hold that thought.
Yeah.
You're going to have to hear that on the other side of this. We're going to be breaking down more things, names that you're going to want to, talk about and think about coming up next. And let me tell you about our friends over at Wonderful. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats that help you keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shell variety, which I really do. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to cracking them up because once they're sealed, it's just the waste. I hate it. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for a busy day. Whether I'm snacking at my desk or on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost, there's always ready to go. And I love cracking open the shells as well, which I do. It is a satisfying thing. If I got some time, I do get mad at the ones that aren't cracked at all, but it is what it is. And the shell option, it's truly just a classic favorite by everybody, right? You love pistachios, you love doing it. Get snacking, get cracking, and the snack pack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachio.com to learn more. Honestly, pistachios I've been eating for years, and pistachios I'm going to be due forever. And all right, guys, look, you want to win your leagues, you're going to want to check out us over at the Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. Look, you need those rankings. You need a solid ground and foundation to start off your fantasy baseball season. That's where you're going to do it. And quite honestly, we're very close. You're going to want our rankings. And we got our sleepers breakout bus. And I'm going to finish up my prospect rankings that I've been so procrastinating with. Got 55, got about another 100 to go for you. And that'll be coming out by the end of next week. And I promise you're not going to want to miss out on that. That's going to help you win your dynasty leagues and those startups. And on top of that, you're just able to ask us questions. Links in the description below. Do not miss out. But all right, let's get back into it. Dom, I want to hear the last thought on Imanaga, and then we do need to move on.
Yeah, no, so just my last thought here on Imanaga is he gave up 27 home runs last year, which is a lot. 15 of those home runs were solo shots. And that's over half. So if you wind up, giving up a couple more homers that are on solo shots, and like I said, I want to see how he adjusted. Imanaga adjusted. So there was like that middle of the season where Imanaga really started to, poop the bed, but he rebounded at the end of the season. I just want to see if he can maintain that momentum going into 2025. Oh, but with that being said, Matt, I did pick on you for Imanaga a little bit. Great breakdown on him, though. I'm definitely moving him up after that, so I got to give you kudos on that. When you look at my rankings, what do you see there? Anything interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, it's pretty standard. I can't really disagree with a lot of your guys. The biggest one I'd see is, which I think you know what? Why don't you have Spencer Strider in this range? That's the real question.
Ooh, okay, we could do that. That's going to be a fun one. And I'm a huge Spencer Strider guy. And let me preface this: if you are in a keeper or dynasty format, Strider drastically moves up. He's still young, still one of the best pitchers in the game. In that kind of format, he honestly top 10, if not top 5 kind of guy. In a redraft league, which is, what my rankings are geared more towards, it's risky when he's missing the first month, coming back off injury. I know he's throwing a bullpen so far, and here in spring training, he's looking good. But look at somebody like a Kodai Senga last year. Oh, yeah, he's only going to miss a month. He'll be fine. Yeah, he missed a lot more than a month. It's just tough trusting a guy who's not ready going into opening day, especially as like an SP2. I'll preface this. I have Strider more in the SP3 range. I'd like to have 2 starting pitchers I know I can count on going into the year, especially in a redraft league. That's why I don't have Strider there. The talent's elite. Spencer Strider is one of the best arms in the game when he has it going. It's just not a risk I'm willing to take. The more shallow the format, the more I'd move him up. So if you're talking 15-man league, I'm probably not touching him. 12-man, probably not touching him either. You get to a 10-man league, though, where waiver wire replacement is going to be at a higher quality than, like I said, the difference between a waiver wire replacement in a 15-man league versus a 10-man league is going to be a huge difference. So if you could go out there and get those kind of higher quality replacements in those shallower formats, I'll move Strider up there too. But for the most part, it's just tough until I have some real concrete, like, hey, the last week of spring training, he's throwing a game, he's out there, he's throwing an inning or two. Yeah, I'll move him up at that point. It's just tough to take a guy, once again, especially starting pitcher who's hurt going into spring training. I do love him though. The talent is elite.
Yeah, and I see that. The thing is, like, yeah, that the setbacks and things like that, but we also just got to look at where he is in his recovery too, and that kind of changes things. He missed all of last season, and he didn't throw it all last year, but he is already throwing now off the mound and things like that, and getting ready to face live BP. So that's a good step in the right direction. He is due back May 5th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that.
Yeah,
May 2nd.
Right.
So May 2nd. So the thing about Strider is, if we start seeing he's already going into, he'll probably get a start in spring training. I won't be surprised. And if he's starting to get a start in spring training, that's really where the key is. And I'm anticipating that. He's already moving to live BP. There's no minor leagues going on. So the next step in his progression, which usually once a pitcher comes back in recovery after live BP, it's usually about 2 weeks, and then they're pitching in games. So we're going to see him, I think, in spring training as long as there's no setbacks. And that's for my ranking as of today. I hear there's a setback. Obviously, he's going to plummet like a rock in water. But at the moment, things are moving in a positive spot. And, if we're starting to see him in spring and we're seeing these things, not only is his ADP going to go up, but I think the 20th pitcher overall, I think is a fair price, because I'll wait the month. Same way everybody's waiting for Acuna, I'm waiting for Spencer Strider.
Yeah, it's basically the same sentiment that I just basically said. So I agree with everything, because I basically just threw out the same kind of argument for him. Yeah, I'll move him up. I kind of took the opposite approach though. You kind of took the approach as if everything's going to go right. I kind of took the approach a little bit more of a pessimistic approach. But yeah, no, it's the elite talent, Spencer Strider, definitely for sure. So let's throw one more at you here, Matt, as we look at the rankings here. Okay, I got one for you. Another guy that I do like, and once again, maybe you can get me to move him up a little bit. Bryce Miller of those Seattle Mariners. Somebody I'm a little bit lower on. Industry is a little bit higher on him than I am. And Matt, I know you like him as well. So let's do some Bryce Miller talk here.
So Bryce Miller, for a guy that isn't your prototypical under the hood kind of love, right? The guys that we really like get a little bit more confident when we're trying to project these guys. He's like the polar opposite of that. He reminds me a lot of like Framber Valdez's under the hood kind of stats, right? Framber's a great pitcher year in and year out, but you look under the hood and the statistics under it aren't great. And you look at Bryce Miller's xERA was a 3.72, even though he posted a sub-3. His batting average is 229. Fastball velocity sitting at, a wonderful 95 miles an hour. But he gives up hard contact at an average exit velocity of 90 miles an hour. Doesn't really get guys to chase. Doesn't create whiffs. Doesn't create strikes guys out, but not as an elite level. But doesn't walk guys, but allows barreling. Gives up hard contact. Doesn't produce a lot of ground balls. Now, if I was talking about anybody else, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy sucks." Straight up, you would. But no, the results on the field are a lot different. So you look at his stat line and it's like, okay, he pitched 180 innings. He had 171 strikeouts. He had a 2.94 ERA, and he had a whip of 0.976. And that's great. And the FIP is a little bit higher. It's about a half run higher at 3.58. And I'm okay with that. I think that honestly, he'll probably be more of like a 3.3 pitcher this year, maybe a 3.4. And I'll take that. The strikeouts never going to be probably over, inning more than an inning, a K per inning. But that I'll take. And my SP2 with a safe floor, with a guy that just genuinely performs week in, week out, no matter what it says under the hood. I buy into the talent. I buy into what he's doing on the mound. And that is why he's where he is at pitcher 21 for me.
I like him. I hear, I pick up what you're putting down with Miller. I think he's a solid starting pitcher. A lot of the concerns I have, you hit on. The underlying stuff doesn't point great in most directions. He's great at not walking too many guys, but the rest of the stuff kind of leaves a bit to be desired. He's another guy who has so many pitches. He has, what is it? It's 6 pitches he throws at least 4% of the time, and 5 pitches he throws at least 8% of the time. I'd like to see Bryce Miller kind of hone in on the pitches that work for him, and throw those a little bit more. The fastball at 42% of the time, it's solid, because he's getting good results with it. Then you look at the sinker, though, throwing it 17.3% of the time, getting hit 248, gave up 4 bombs with it last year. It's a solid pitch, but something that maybe he could throw a little bit less. And then you said the underlying stuff ERA isn't great, so there's a world where Bryce Miller has a 3.5 plus ERA. The K per 9 isn't great. The whip should be decent. He did a good job at, like I said, limiting the walks last year. Has had some walk issues in the past in the minors, but it looks like he's overcome it. So I'm not going to be super worried about that. And especially, all those Seattle pitchers actually have really good control. So they vibe off each other there. Just at this point in the draft, you kind of look at some of the names I have in that range, like the Pablo Lopez's, the Freddie Peralta's, going for the strikeouts at that point, to be honest with you. I want guys that are going to give me the big strikeout numbers and stuff like that. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on Bryce Miller. But with that being said, we have a bunch more great names to discuss. So you got to make sure you stay locked on for all that action-packed info coming up next.
All right. So I'm going to touch on this real quick. So I mentioned the comparison to Framber Valdez, and I think I'm going to get you up. You like Framber Valdez. He's literally your 18th overall pitcher. Now, this is Framber's underlying stats. xERA 341. He had a 2.91 ERA. X batting average 234. Fastball velocity sitting at 94.1 miles an hour. Bryce Miller's is at 95. Average exit velocity at 90.2. So is Miller. Chase is about the same, 28%. Whiff is is a little bit better than Bryce Miller, but Bryce Miller's got better on the Ks. The walk is pretty much the same. The only thing that he does a lot better than him is barreling and ground balls, but he gives up hard contact about 45% of the time. They have very similar profiles, and yet you have one guy ranked where you haven't ranked. We're not going to say because it's in the next episode, and you have him at 8, and you have Framber Valdez at 18. If you're okay with the underlying stats for Framber, you should be somewhat on board and higher on Bryce Miller for that fact.
It's just kind of simple that Framber Valdez has been doing it for a long time. You got 4 years of Framber Valdez kind of with the similar underlying stats, getting the same results. So I'm not super worried about the underlying stats when it comes to Framber, and I mean, even look at the underlying stuff versus the results. The results have been there for 4 straight years. So if Bryce Miller proves himself to be that kind of Framber Valdez guy where the underlying stuff doesn't necessarily match up with, the results, then I might turn the corner on Miller. But when I just look at Valdez, he's one of those first guys that is like one of those safety blankets. When you're looking at starting pitcher, he's one of those guys that I look at and I say, hey, if I took a risky SP1, I think I'll give you a perfect example. Somebody that we both like. If you take Yamamoto as your SP1, I think a great pairing is a Framber Valdez.
Agreed.
And, when you're looking at ADP for Valdez, he's coming off the board as the 15th starting pitcher, pick 58. Do I love it? No, I don't. But, as 2 big things I value with my rankings. One, I said strikeouts. Framber isn't necessarily a strikeout guy. The other thing I value is if you've been doing it for a while. If you've proven to me that, hey, like I said, the underlying stuff may not look great, but I'm getting the results on the field for 4 straight years. I love that. And then, like I said, last year, another solid year as 30 years old for Framber Valdez with those Astros, 2.91 ERA, 176 innings, 169 strikeouts, 110 whip. I'll take that all day. The underlying stuff, even for FIP, though, looked good. A 3.25. He's had a low 3s to high 2s, or high 2s to low 3s ERA each of the last 4 years. Like I said, I just kind of value that consistency over a guy that, hey, he might be good or he might just be Framber Valdez.
Fair enough. All right. So it's my turn. My turn to pick on you. But instead of picking on you, because I think our rankings don't have many differences at this point, except for maybe guys being in higher tiers. So let's do this. Who is your favorite guys to get in this round, in this spot? Like, who are your favorite targets?
So I know we spoke about him in a little bit of last episode. I'll just throw his name out there. Luis Castillo for me, just because it kind of lines up with the ADP of where he's going. Honestly, probably the best SP2 that you could get for the value right now. Matt, what's your term? ROP, return on pick. Yep. I think Luis Castillo is going to be one of the best guys this year. 23rd starting pitcher according to ADP, pick 83. The value on that is crazy. I love it. I like Glasnow as an upside play. You know, he's not the safety blanket. He's the exact opposite. I think he has the chance, if he throws 150 innings, to be a top 10 starting pitcher. I'll give you one more. Let's say Tanner Bybee. I think he's being so overlooked this year just because he's going to be so consistent. He gives you over that K per 9. SP 28 off the board, pick 97. I'm well above that on him. Matt, I throw the question right back at you, brother. Who are your favorite targets in this range?
So you named one of them, and that's Tanner Bybee. And, we talk consistency, but, I was actually, my bold take, which I was way off on, was him winning Cy Young. But there is a world and a way where he can do it. The dude does have upside to seriously be. He took a step forward in the strikeouts last year. The ERA took a hit, and and the whip was pretty much the same. So if he can figure out the ERA a little bit and keep hammering in on those strikeouts, there's a world where he's an SP1 next year. If he can finish with anywhere from a 315 to 330 ERA with the strikeout numbers going a little bit higher, then I'm telling you this kid's going to be monstrous, and you're going to be talking about him getting close to, pitcher 13, pitcher 12. On top of that, the price is absolutely wonderful. One of my favorite targets in this is Shane McClanahan because he does not go as an SP2. He's like an SP like 3-4ish in a lot of places, and you're getting him on a serious steal. Yes, he's coming back from TJ. Yes, he's only had like one full year of brilliance. The other year he had was everything stepping in the right direction, which gives me the confidence in him of 2 years of trending in that direction, which things I look for growth in young pitchers. Even with him returning from TJ, I still believe in the talent. Hence why I have him at 19. And lastly, honestly, Hunter Greene, if I can snag him, the upside is wonderful. The park blows, but I think he's going to be fine. I think the fastball is so overwhelming that he's going to pretty much Matt Harvey his way to success and just kind of blow people out of the water there. And it's just not going to be able to see the ball, let alone make contact. And if they do, it might not be the greatest. So Hunter Greene is somebody that I'm loving more and more every time I look at him. Dom, one last question for you.
Shoot.
Who is your least favorite guy out of this rankings for you out of your top 13 to 24?
Ooh,
you have him there more of obligation than you do out of one.
That's a fun question, man. I'll say this. I think this is a good range to jump in and grab your SP2, as cliche as that's going to sound. I really like all these guys in the way I have them lined up. If I had to pick one, and I got to say sorry to my buddy Jonathan because he loves this guy, Pablo Lopez. I'm sorry. I don't see the upside anymore after we've been expecting it for 3 straight years. I think the ERA is going to be elevated like it has been. The strikeouts are going to be fantastic. The whip is a little bit, and then he plays for the Twins. They're an okay team. I don't think there's crazy win upside there. Matt, I throw the question back at you, and then I have one last Tanner Bybee stat if anyone wants to stick around at the end.
So well said, and I completely agree with that. That's why he's actually going to be in tomorrow's episode. I have him much lower, but the guy that I tend to find myself ignoring, even though I have him there out of obligation, is Jacob deGrom, and I love Jacob deGrom. When he's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. If he manages to pitch, 180 innings this year, he might be the SP1 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
Yeah. The problem is will he? He hasn't done it in God knows how long. So for Jacob deGrom, it's, okay, do I get even 100 innings from here? And that's the scariest thing. But I have to have him there. I can't not pass on him after a certain point. It's always an ugly pick for me. But, I still think that even if he gets 130 innings, he'll probably still finish as the pitcher 23, which is the scariest thing. So that is why he is where he is for me. It's an ugly ranking. I always find myself passing, but I can't move him down any lower. My projections will not allow it.
Yeah, facts, Matt. I'm with you there on deGrom, and it's just tough because the ADP is SP17, pick 63. I can't do that. I have one quick Tanner Bybee stat before we get you guys out of here. So Tanner Bybee's last 23 starts of the season, he pitched 133 innings, 143 strikeouts, had a 3.04 ERA. And batters hit 218 against him over that time with a 102 whip. So we have, an ace blossoming right before our eyes, and we are getting him at SP28 right now. So take advantage of ADP while you can. Matt, any thoughts before we get out of here?
All I can say is, hey, baby, or hey, bye, B. How you doing?
Great. I love it. I love it.
So, like, literally, he's going to be a steal this year. Just, try and work him into your draft. He's a guy you really don't want to miss. Completely agree. Guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share the show. We love doing it. We just need more people to keep showing up every day. We love you every dayers. Our fans are awesome. Our new fans, we love you too. And share it. Don't be a hoarder. And when you're done, check out our boy, Sully over at Locked On MLB. Really does put on a good show, gives great real baseball coverage. With that, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace out.